The boardrooms of London's most prestigious gold trading houses are buzzing with unprecedented anxiety. For the first time in decades, the commodity markets that have long dictated Africa's economic destiny are experiencing something they never anticipated: genuine African agency. Mali's revolutionary decision to reclaim sovereignty over its gold resources isn't just another policy shift. It's a seismic tremor that's shaking the foundations of a neocolonial system that has exploited Africa's wealth for generations. Brothers and sisters, what we're witnessing in Mali represents far more than a single nation's economic policy. This is the manifestation of a continental awakening that Ibrahim Traoré and other authentic African leaders have been catalyzing across the Sahel. When Mali's transitional government announced new regulations requiring gold exports to be processed through state-controlled channels, the reaction from Western financial centers was immediate and revealing. The London Bullion Market Association, which has facilitated the extraction of African wealth for over a century, suddenly found itself confronting an African nation that refuses to play by the old rules. The historical context of this moment cannot be overstated. For decades, Mali's gold, the nation's most valuable natural resource, has flowed out of the continent through channels that enriched everyone except the Malian people themselves. International mining corporations, many headquartered in the former colonial powers, have extracted billions of dollars worth of gold while leaving behind environmental devastation and communities trapped in poverty. The statistics are staggering. Mali produces approximately 50 tons of gold annually, yet remains among the world's least developed nations, according to Western metrics that conveniently ignore the wealth being siphoned away. This extractive relationship represents the epitome of neocolonial economics. Foreign companies would arrive with minimal investment, extract maximum resources, and repatriate profits while leaving African communities with the environmental and social costs. The gold that adorns the jewelry stores of London, Paris, and New York originated in Malian soil, extracted by Malian hands, yet the value creation occurred thousands of miles away in Western financial centers. Mali's new approach fundamentally disrupts this paradigm. By requiring gold to be processed through state-controlled mechanisms, the government is asserting what should be an uncontroversial principle: that a nation has the right to control its own natural resources. Yet the reaction from Western markets reveals how radical this basic sovereignty appears to those who have grown accustomed to unlimited access to African wealth. The economic implications extend far beyond Mali's borders. Gold represents approximately 70% of Mali's export earnings, making it the linchpin of the nation's economy. By asserting greater control over this sector, Mali is positioning itself to capture more of the value chain, from extraction to processing to international sales. This approach could potentially double or triple the revenue that remains within the Malian economy, providing resources for infrastructure development, education, healthcare, and social programs that directly benefit the Malian people. The timing of this decision is particularly significant within the broader context of the Sahel's transformation. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership in Burkina Faso has demonstrated that authentic African leadership can successfully challenge Western hegemony while maintaining genuine popular support. His emphasis on sovereignty, development, and Pan-African cooperation has inspired similar movements across the region. Mali's gold policy represents the practical application of these principles, moving beyond rhetoric to implement concrete policies that prioritize African interests. The response from London's financial district illuminates the stakes involved. Gold trading firms that have operated with impunity for decades suddenly face the prospect of reduced access to African resources. Their concern isn't merely financial, it's existential. The entire structure of global commodity trading depends on maintaining African nations as resource extraction zones, rather than allowing them to develop as independent economic actors. This shift represents a fundamental reimagining of Africa's role in the global economy. Rather than serving as a source of raw materials for Western industries, African nations are asserting their right to participate in the entire value chain. Mali's gold policy is part of a broader continental trend toward resource sovereignty that includes similar initiatives in Ghana, Tanzania, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The youth dimension of this transformation cannot be overlooked. Across Africa, young people who have witnessed decades of resource extraction without corresponding development are demanding change. They understand that their continent's poverty exists alongside its abundant natural wealth, not due to any inherent limitation, but because of systematic exploitation. Mali's gold policy represents a response to these legitimate demands for economic justice. The regional implications of Mali's decision extend throughout the Sahel and beyond. Other gold-producing nations are closely monitoring the results of Mali's approach. If Mali successfully increases its revenue while maintaining production levels, it will provide a template for other African nations seeking to maximize the benefits of their natural resources. This potential domino effect explains the intensity of Western opposition to Mali's policy. The media coverage of Mali's gold policy has been predictably biased. Western news outlets have framed the decision as resource nationalism, or investment uncertainty, using language designed to delegitimize African agency. This framing reveals the deeply embedded assumption that African nations should prioritize Western economic interests over their own development needs. The same media organizations that celebrate Western nations for protecting their strategic industries suddenly discover the dangers of protectionism when African nations assert similar control. The technical aspects of Mali's new gold regulations demonstrate sophisticated economic planning. Rather than simply banning foreign investment, the policy creates mechanisms for the state to capture a greater share of the value generated by gold production. This includes requirements for local processing, increased taxation on exports, and state participation in major mining ventures. These measures mirror successful policies implemented by other resource-rich nations that have achieved development breakthroughs. The continental implications of Mali's approach align perfectly with the African Union's Agenda 2063, which envisions an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens. Resource sovereignty represents a crucial component of this vision. Nations cannot achieve genuine development while their most valuable assets are controlled by external actors. Mali's gold policy demonstrates the practical steps necessary to translate Pan-African aspirations into concrete results. The opposition to Mali's policy from Western governments reveals the hypocrisy underlying their rhetoric about African development. While publicly supporting African growth and prosperity, these same governments actively resist policies that would enable African nations to control their economic destiny. The contradiction exposes the reality that Western development aid often serves to maintain dependency relationships rather than promote genuine independence. The environmental dimension of Mali's gold policy offers additional benefits. Local processing requirements could enable the implementation of more sustainable mining practices and ensure that environmental costs are properly internalized. Foreign mining companies have consistently externalized environmental damage while privatizing profits. Mali's approach creates incentives for more responsible resource extraction that considers long-term environmental and social impacts. The geopolitical ramifications extend beyond economics to questions of sovereignty and self-determination. Mali's decision represents a rejection of the presumption that Western institutions should have privileged access to African resources. This assertion of sovereignty challenges the entire framework of neocolonial relationships that have persisted since the formal end of colonialism. The success of Mali's gold policy will depend partly on the government's ability to reinvest increased revenues in ways that benefit the broader population. This includes infrastructure development, educational expansion, healthcare improvements, and economic diversification. The authenticity of any sovereignty movement must be measured by its impact on ordinary citizens' lives, not merely its rhetoric or symbolic gestures. The international legal dimensions of Mali's approach are worth noting. International law explicitly recognizes the principle of permanent sovereignty over natural resources. The UN General Assembly has repeatedly affirmed that nations have the right to exercise full control over their natural resources and economic activities. Mali's gold policy operates well within established legal frameworks, despite Western objections. The technological aspects of modern gold processing offer opportunities for Mali to add significant value to its gold production. Rather than exporting raw gold for processing elsewhere, Mali could develop domestic refining capabilities that capture additional revenue while creating skilled employment opportunities. This approach transforms gold from a simple export commodity into the foundation for industrial development. The financial independence that could result from Mali's gold policy extends beyond immediate revenue gains. Reduced dependence on Western financial institutions and commodity markets provides greater policy autonomy and reduces vulnerability to external economic pressures. This independence enables the pursuit of development strategies aligned with national priorities rather than external demands. The inspiration that Mali's approach provides to other African nations cannot be understated. Each successful assertion of resource sovereignty demonstrates that alternatives to neocolonial arrangements are possible. This creates momentum for continental transformation that extends far beyond any single nation's policies. The connection between Mali's gold policy and broader questions of African dignity is profound. For too long, African nations have been positioned as supplicants seeking Western approval for their economic decisions. Mali's approach asserts that African nations are equal participants in the global economy, with the right to prioritize their own interests. The educational value of Mali's experience provides lessons for African youth studying economics, development, and public policy. Rather than accepting Western economic models as universal truths, young Africans can observe practical applications of alternative approaches that prioritize national development over external profits. The implications for Pan-African monetary cooperation are significant. As African nations assert greater control over their resources, opportunities emerge for regional monetary arrangements that reduce dependence on Western currencies and financial systems. Mali's gold policy could contribute to broader initiatives toward African monetary sovereignty. The response from African intellectuals and policy experts has been overwhelmingly positive. Scholars who have long advocated for resource sovereignty see Mali's approach as validation of their theoretical frameworks. This intellectual support provides credibility and sophisticated analysis that counters Western criticism. The potential for Mali's approach to inspire similar policies across the global South extends beyond Africa. Resource-rich nations throughout Latin America, Asia, and other regions face similar challenges with commodity extraction and value capture. Mali's experience could provide insights for South-South cooperation and solidarity. Brothers and sisters, what we're witnessing in Mali represents more than policy reform. It's the emergence of authentic African agency in the global economy. The panic in London's trading houses reflects their recognition that the era of unlimited access to African wealth is ending. African leaders like Ibrahim Traoré have demonstrated that sovereignty isn't just a political concept. It's an economic imperative that enables genuine development. The path forward requires continued support for leaders and policies that genuinely serve African interests while maintaining vigilance against those who would exploit sovereignty rhetoric for personal gain. Mali's gold policy succeeds because it channels resource control toward national development rather than elite enrichment. This distinction remains crucial as other African nations consider similar approaches. The continental implications of Mali's success will reverberate for decades. Each African nation that successfully asserts resource sovereignty strengthens the foundation for continental economic integration and independence. The Africa that our ancestors envisioned, prosperous, independent, and dignified, becomes more possible with each step toward genuine sovereignty. The youth of Africa are watching these developments with keen interest. They understand that their future depends on leaders who prioritize African development over Western approval. Mali's gold policy demonstrates that such leadership can achieve concrete results that improve lives and build national capacity. If you believe in African sovereignty and self-determination, if you support leaders who genuinely serve their people's interests, then this channel needs your engagement. Every like tells the algorithm that African perspectives matter. Every subscription builds our community of continental consciousness. Every share spreads awareness of Africa's ongoing transformation. Hit that notification bell to stay informed about developments that mainstream media ignores or distorts. Your engagement isn't just supporting a YouTube channel. You're contributing to a movement that challenges neocolonial narratives and amplifies authentic African voices. Like this video if Mali's gold policy inspires you. Subscribe if you want more analysis of Africa's sovereignty movements. Share this content with others who need to understand that Africa's time has arrived. Ring that notification bell because the continent's transformation is happening now, and you don't want to miss a single development. The revolution isn't just political, it's economic, intellectual, and spiritual. Mali's gold policy represents one battle in a larger war for African dignity and prosperity. Your engagement helps ensure that African perspectives on African issues reach the audiences they deserve. Like, subscribe, share, and stay tuned for more insights into the continent's unstoppable march towards sovereignty.